Malaysia was once a mostly agricultural country, but today it stands as one of Asia's most impressive development stories.
How did this transformation actually happen? Well, in this explainer, we're going to trace the epic journey of a young nation literally fighting for its economic survival and global relevance. We're going to uncover the strategies, the struggles, and the highly calculated triumphs that completely reshaped a country, turning its rural landscape into a cinematic economic documentary playing out in real time.
Act 1. The Vulnerable Agricultural Past. To really appreciate the scale of this economic hero's journey, we've got to go back to the very beginning, right after independence in 1957. Picture this: a newly formed nation, physically rich in land and resources, but economically incredibly fragile. Research suggests that back in the 1960s, Malaysia was perilously dependent on just two single commodities: raw rubber and tin. Those two raw materials made up a staggering 80% of their exports. This dynamic left the young nation entirely at the mercy of the outside world. If global markets suddenly needed less rubber, or if a new synthetic alternative was invented somewhere overseas, Malaysia's entire economy would just tremble.
This massive price instability severely disrupted their national development planning. Sure, during a temporary commodity boom, revenues would soar. But when the inevitable market collapse followed, the country faced brutal resource constraints. Infrastructure projects would grind to a halt, and everyday citizens really felt the squeeze. It forced early leaders to realize a harsh existential truth. Economic diversification wasn't just some optional policy goal. It was a matter of absolute national survival. They simply could not build a modern, stable nation on a foundation that could crumble overnight just because of a price shift in London or New York.
Act 2. Vision and National Strategy.
Now, following the tragic ethnic tensions of the May 13 incident in 1969, a major domestic crisis ended up catalyzing an entirely new economic blueprint. The government recognized a sobering reality. Raw economic growth alone just wasn't enough. It had to actively restructure society to eradicate poverty and ensure racial harmony. They faced an incredibly complex challenge, balancing profound cultural, religious, and traditional values with an urgent, undeniable need for rapid modernization. This era birthed a uniquely Malaysian philosophy: the pursuit of growth with equitable distribution. So, under visionary leadership, including prominent figures like Mahathir Mohamad, Malaysia initiated a sequence of highly disciplined, long-term national master plans. We're talking about the new economic policy in the 1970s to the Look East policy of the 1980s that modeled growth after Japan and South Korea, and later, the incredibly ambitious Vision 2020. The nation committed to decades-long strategies. And what is truly remarkable here is the political stability that allowed a 30-year vision to actually play out. They weren't just reacting to the next election cycle, right? They were meticulously designing the next century.
Act 3. The Global Industrial Boom.
Okay, the device you're using to watch or listen to this explainer right now, it likely contains microchips with roots in this exact initiative. By establishing free trade zones in 1971 and allowing duty-free imports, Malaysia successfully courted multinational tech giants. They took primarily agricultural areas, most notably the island of Penang, and transformed them into high-tech global manufacturing clusters. Penang quickly earned a reputation as the Silicon Valley of the East, drawing in massive foreign investments from companies desperate for a reliable, export-oriented base. This turning point was absolutely explosive. Manufacturing surged from a mere 10% of GDP in 1960 to a staggering peak of 31% by 1999. Fueled by foreign direct investment, the country fundamentally rewrote its DNA. Malaysia went from exporting raw sap from rubber trees to exporting highly complex microchips and electrical appliances. On the ground, this meant massive job creation, the rapid growth of a brand new middle class, and a massive shift of the population from rural farms straight into bustling factory towns. Fast forward to today, and agriculture accounts for less than 8% of the economy. The nation is shielded from its volatile past by a robust, modernized mix. The economy is now driven by high-tech electronics manufacturing, an incredibly successful global tourism brand that draws millions of visitors a year, and highly scaled resource management like palm oil. It is completely transformed into a remarkably diversified powerhouse. Act 4. Infrastructure and modern cities. But here's the thing. An industrial boom requires world-class physical foundations. You cannot be an export powerhouse if you can't seamlessly move your goods. Many experts point to the aggressive deployment of massive public and privatized megaprojects as the physical arteries of this boom. They literally carved the 869-kilometer north-south expressway through the peninsula.
They built modernized megaports capable of handling millions of tons of cargo, and constructed the iconic Kuala Lumpur city center, complete with the Petronas Twin Towers, which boldly signaled their arrival on the global stage. Simultaneously, the government aggressively built up its human capital, because you can have all the modern highways and megaports in the world, but you absolutely need smart, trained people to drive a modern economy. Malaysia achieved educational attainment rates that rivaled or beat regional peers, investing heavily in schools, universities, and specialized technical training. By ensuring their workforce could handle the new, highly technical jobs arriving on their shores, they successfully dropped extreme poverty below 1%, which is just incredible. Act 5. Escaping the middle income trap. However, every hero's journey faces a climactic hurdle. For Malaysia, it is the profound threat of stalling out before reaching high-income status. The strategies that got them here won't necessarily get them to the next level. To avoid being squeezed between lower-cost producers in neighboring countries and higher-value innovators in the West, a massive structural shift is required. They have to actively transition from downstream electronics assembly to upstream research and development, swapping a reliance on low-cost labor for high-skilled domestic talent, and moving toward green tech and digital services. Now, the sources do point out that the nation still grapples with very real systemic challenges that threaten this future. Bureaucratic red tape and a persistently high cost of doing business can throttle innovation. Furthermore, a heavy reliance on low-skilled foreign labor suppresses domestic wage growth. Beyond the factories, there are ongoing public debates regarding income inequality, the rising cost of living for average citizens, and real concerns over institutional corruption. The nation must continuously and aggressively navigate these issues to ensure their economic growth remains truly inclusive. But despite these daunting challenges, there is a massive tailwind rapidly approaching. Rising global demand for advanced semiconductors and artificial intelligence applications is projected to help sustain Malaysia's economic growth at a robust 4 to 4.5% heading into 2026. Because they had the amazing foresight to establish those global tech clusters decades ago, they are perfectly positioned to ride the multi-trillion-dollar AI wave today. Act 6. Lessons for the world. As we look at the totality of this historical arc, the blueprint for building an Asian tiger is incredibly clear. Step 1 requires a painful but necessary pivot away from commodity dependence. Step 2 demands implementing focused, decades-long national plans that actually survive political transitions. Step 3 is to aggressively attract foreign direct investment by making it frictionless to do business. And Step 4 is to combine that openness to global trade with highly disciplined, massive internal investments in roads, ports, and people. It is a true masterclass in long-term macroeconomic management. Which brings us to the ultimate profound question. Can other developing countries follow Malaysia's model? The roadmap exists, clear as day, but the execution challenges the rest of the developing world to look closely at their own policies. Do they have the political stability required to stick to a script for 30 years? Do they have the willpower to endure the friction of massive structural reforms? I want to leave you with this final, powerful thought. Malaysia's story proves that a country does not become developed by luck, it becomes developed by vision, planning, and discipline.